Welcome to the Daily Objective, day is it 94 of the war in Israel. I'm joined by Morgan. Morgan, how's it going?
Not too bad, Razi.
We like to talk about some of our favorite people here on the Daily Objective. Today we're talking about this news that came out, or it's not 100% confirmed, but that Jeremy Corbyn may be launching a new political party as an alternative, a left or more to the left alternative to Labour, the Labour Party, which he led and into two general elections and then lost. By the way, in the title, we asked, is he going to launch Hamas UK? I have to say, we don't have confirmation that this party is going to be called Hamas UK, but Jeremy Corbyn has confirmation that the El Ali Hospital alleged bombing was not actually Israel bombing the hospital, that 500 people did not die. And yet that tweet is still up. So there is certainly more of a chance of this party being called Hamas UK than there is of Jeremy Corbyn actually telling the truth on the Al Ali Hospital incident. All right, I can. I just the thought of Jeremy Corbyn, doesn't help me calm down. So Morgan, you can help me with that maybe, and then we'll get into what that party might look like.
Sure. I guess I would think most of the viewers would probably know who Jeremy Corbyn is, but since I know we have a lot of US viewers who may have just missed him since he was never the Prime Minister, he was only ever Leader of the Opposition. Jeremy Corbyn was a Labour Party politician. He's no longer is. He was actually expelled from the Labour Party, which is sort of the context for why he's going to be founding his own party, who existed kind of on the backbenches for decades. I think he came into the House of Commons, I want to say in the 70s. He's very much a figure of that era. He's old Labour, old socialism, hard left of the Labour Party, which is quite something. And he existed in basically obscurity for decades. Very few people in the country would have known who he was until after the 2015 election. Ed Miliband, who represented a kind of continuation of New Labour, of Blairism, lost the election and resigned. And there was a leadership election. The person who looked to be the favourite to win that election was a guy called Andy Burnham, who is you never hear about him anymore. He's the mayor of Manchester, but he isn't really a major figure on the national scene so much. And then in a kind of shock victory, Jeremy Corbyn went from kind of polling 3 or 4% of the Labour vote to right to the top and won the election and became leader of the opposition until I want to say I think it swapped in the first month of lockdown until something like April 2020 he was leader of the Labour Party, so for 5 years. So we were facing this kind of real swing of Labour back to the hard left after something like, was it 25 years of New Labour? And it was quite a shock to a lot of people. And also it's a shock given some of his political affiliations. Obviously, you mentioned Razi, his ties with Hamas, in the sense that he refers to Hamas as friends, has hosted representatives of Hamas here in the UK. So obviously in a very despicable way, he represents that kind of left-wing politics. And his time in office, those 5 years, was a time of scandal, really, for the Labour Party. It was absolutely disastrous on numerous fronts, but one of them was due to anti-Semitism and these kind of lower level figures, all the way up to relatively high figures, major figures, but mostly low level figures in the party suddenly felt confident to voice their anti-Semitism, whereas they hadn't done before. And this obviously caused a lot of hand-wringing from Labour because they view themselves as the party of who are against racism, who are against prejudice, and obviously a lot of the national press lampooned them on this, quite rightly. And there was inquests into it and so on. And so this is who Corbyn is. And after he left office as the head of the opposition and head of the Labour Party and was placed by Keir Starmer, over the inquest into anti-Semitism and his handling of it, he was actually kicked out completely. So he's currently sitting as an independent MP in the political wilderness, and we see the potential for him to find his own party. Which I don't know about your views on that, Razi, but I couldn't go for it. I would really like him to do that. Here in Scotland, the ruling party is called the Scottish Nationalist Party. which is basically a party that's been dominated by two figures for most of its history in government. The first one was Alex Salmond, and the second one is Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon, who's just recently left. And Alex Salmond basically left office in a similarly kind of blaze of ignominy. He lost the attempt for the Scottish referendum, and then there was a big scandal about suggestions that he'd sexually assaulted members of his staff. And so he was kicked out of the SNP and then has gone and found this rival party called ALBA, which basically the only politicians who are part of ALBA are the people who are too scandalous to be in the SNP. So it's where all the retrobates go and who have no chance and who'll split the vote where they stand. Now, they do have this kind of deal where they won't stand in places where they think the SNP will win, which makes them less of a drag. But basically, it splits the independence vote and makes the movement weaker. So if Corbyn founds this party, then in all likelihood, he's going to weaken and split the left-wing vote instead of it all going to the Labour Party. And, good for him. At least he's going to do something good for us.
Yeah. So here's the thing. When Corbyn became leader, he had this whole movement momentum, which I think was set up for this, right? To basically take over the Labour Party. There was they had momentum, and but in terms of the general election, it looked like he was going to lose. When the general election of 2017 was called, it was like 20 points, 20% behind Theresa May. By the day of the election, that had changed. I mean, she had a strategy of basically hiding during the whole campaign, which was not a bad idea considering how bad she was. But he was out there, and he was, principles are attractive even to people who aren't principled. And they heard one principled person, and they saw Theresa May, who was probably the least principled of all the recent conservative prime ministers, which is saying a lot. And yeah, he came very close to winning. Now, even in 2019, where he lost by what was called a landslide, I remember saying, and I'm pretty sure if anybody wants to go on my Twitter at Razi Ginzberg and scroll back to election night, where I went on this whole rant celebrating, but also saying, hang on, a third of the country voted for this socialist anti-Semite. We have to be worried here. So look, I also hope he splits the left-wing vote. Although I'm not sure how much I actually hope for the conservatives to win. That's another problem. They're all bad, but yeah, I don't know. I think we should um you know hope for the best, but we should definitely be concerned and stay vigilant so that we don't wake up on election night and see scenes like this,
See it what like Corbyn
like what
getting.
Daniel is about to share. That was my queuing up a video. All right, yeah, that was the whole point was an excuse to show that the history's most awkward high five. But yeah, we can still joke. I think it's still allowed. He hasn't won yet, but yeah, look, there's yeah, Frank actually mentioned something I was going to mention, which is George Galloway. This party is very much like the party that George Galloway himself started because he was, the Labour Party wasn't anti-Semitic enough, or I don't know what it was not enough for him. He started this party called Respect. And yeah, this party, Jeremy Corbyn's Hamas UK or whatever it's going to be called, definitely is haunted by the ghost of George Galloway. Even though he's still alive, he manages to haunt it. And ideologically, he's a perfect fit for it, as is the former mayor of London, Ken Livingstone, another despicable person. I can see the figures. We talked about Chris Williamson here, who tweets pretty much daily that Israel should be dismantled, which is another nice way to say exterminate the Jews without actually, committing a hate crime. So yeah, Morgan, I hope you're right. I'm not optimistic. I'm terrified. I'm terrified enough by the prospect of Keir Starmer as prime minister. The idea that Jeremy Corbyn might be, I don't know if he can get organized quickly enough, but I wouldn't be surprised if he can for an election this year. I would worry.
Yeah, I have to say that from whilst in the sense I'm saying semi-seriously that I think it would be a beneficial thing for the country to split the left-wing vote if he founds this party. It's a strange thing for him to do from his perspective, I think. So the things which were listed as potentially being the platform on which this party would stand were being anti-war, so anti-Israel as well, almost certainly, having a focus on green policies, and basically opposing the move by Starmer to try and move Labour back into the centre. Now, some people debate over to what extent he's actually done that, but Starmer's at least tried to position himself as a kind of Blairite candidate who, kind of wants to maintain the market whilst introducing some social democratic measures, right? So I don't know why, to be honest, Corbyn would found another party when he could just join the Green Party. The Green Party stands for all of those things. Corbyn also very famously isn't a fan of the monarchy. And the Green Party is one of the few political parties which is actually an openly Republican party. And the Green Party already has local councillors, already has an MP in Caroline Lucas, has name recognition in the country, polls well amongst the groups that his new party would be polling amongst. So I don't know why he doesn't just become a Green Party MP, to be honest.
Yeah, I know because he's not going to become the leader automatically, whereas here he may, and he definitely has aspirations to become the leader. I remember in one of those press conferences during the election campaign, I think it was of 2019, you see some journalists around them and around him, and they're I don't know what they were fighting or arguing about, and he says to them something like cooperate, and then he says under socialism you will cooperate. You remember that? It was kind of one of those moments that he let it slip what kind of regime he's gonna run. Yeah, by the way, when you say Republican in the British political context, for people who are not familiar, that means somebody who wants to abolish the monarchy. He's not a Republican in the American sense, although I think some Republican candidates are Corbyn-like, and we'll talk about that in the Republican debate, which is coming up after this show. Yeah, there was this 104 things Labor would do differently that he published when he was leader or whenever it was, and yeah, I've seen people on Twitter saying, whether or not this is true, we should go with this, and people have left the Labor Party in recent months for their lack of enthusiasm about finishing the job that Hitler started. So yeah, this party. Again, it will have popular appeal, and we'll see where it goes.
I guess so. Yeah, it's an interesting future for a former leader of the Labour Party. I can't see this polling well. And one of the things you have to think about British political parties, as with any political party, is where is their homeland going to be? The Tory homeland is in the home counties in the south mostly. In the southwest is Tory and Liberal heartland. Labour has not all of, but a lot of the north. Has a fair bit of Wales. Has some footholds in Scotland, but not very many. And then also Labour has a lot of London, but which is also split a little bit with Tory as well. So where is the heartland for this party going to be? Because so it's not going to appeal to the new Labour types, to the people who think that it's really great that Keir Starmer is looking more and more like Tony Blair. So he's not going to be getting those votes. Then to the old Labour types, I would have to say, I think, so a lot of the old Labour types, part of the reason why he didn't actually do very well, I know, so you were saying that you were worried by the amount of vote he got in the 2017 election, which I think that's a fair point. But he actually didn't do very well amongst the old Labour voters because those voters are actually quite patriotic, whereas he isn't. So there was famously a scandal, but quite a minor thing in a way, which was that he didn't sing the national anthem and refused to kind of apologize for it, basically. And also I think it was at various war memorials and at Prime Minister's questions, he would never have his top button done up, like I don't have mine done up now. And so basically he was viewed as slovenly, unpatriotic, intellectual left. Now that doesn't appeal to the old Labour voters. They want basically to see someone who's there who's going to represent the working man. So they want a politician like Dennis Skinner, who'll be an obscure name to I think a lot of people watching, but who used to be a miner and was a real kind of firebrand socialist type. Um, they don't want Corbyn. They're very king and country patriotic types. They just want a different economic structure, basically. So I cut. It would be an electoral failure completely. I really don't see how such a party could get off the floor, but I would really love to see him try. So there we go.
So I think we'll see the true power of the Novara media, Owen Jones kind of left because those people will immediately flock to him. I think that he's going to have a lot of support among the media. And yeah, you mentioned anti-war, which is something these people we've spoken about this before. If somebody in the West describes themselves as anti-war, what they almost always mean is that they are anti the West winning any war, and certainly the Jews winning any war. So that's what they mean. They very much support, violence against innocents. We saw their tweets on October 7th. Go back and check. So yeah, they are very much pro-war. Jonathan Honig, thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Frank. Frank said, if a party wins with a plurality, does it have power? No, this is a constituency based, I forgot what it's called, it's a regional system. So there are 635 local constituencies. It's first past the post in each of them. So yeah, you're not actually going to be able to vote for Jeremy Corbyn anywhere except the one constituency in which he runs, which I'm guessing is going to be somewhere in London. I don't know if it's going to be Islington North as his previous constituency or current constituency is, although that would make sense for him to do. But yeah, you win a seat, and yeah, that I think is also part of what makes it more difficult. I come from a country where we have proportional representation. I've seen parties come out of the blue just because nobody likes the main parties, and somebody is saying something that they've never heard before. So yeah, it's yeah, in a proportional representation system, I'd be seriously worried that Jeremy Corbyn can, first of all, easily get organized in time for an election a few months away, and which is much more difficult if you have to have candidates running in 635 constituencies or however many you want. Uh, that might help make it difficult for him, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The British electoral system has fundamentally stayed the same since before the political parties existed in Britain. It emerged from a system where basically there were groupings of people, but there weren't meant to be parties. So we're in a kind of half and half situation where you only ever vote for your local MP, but people are voting with the party and the party leader in mind as well. So there's a kind of division there. And the consequence being that there's a very high bar to entry for any political party to actually get off the ground. One of the most successful political parties in recent years in the UK was obviously the UK Independence Party, which never actually, so far as I remember, ever won a seat. It had two MPs at one time, but they were defections from the Conservatives. And they had membership much larger, as far as I remember, than any of the main parties about 10 years ago. This was. Now they've decayed. And were immensely more successful. They completely achieved their objective, basically. And yet they could never win. And Nigel Farage could never win a seat in the House of Commons. So it's a really difficult thing. So, yeah, in a proportional representation system like Israel or Italy or wherever, it's much more feasible that you could start a party, get some seats, form a coalition, and make some kind of power demands. But it's a really tricky prospect in the UK to launch a party like this and expect to have any success. Basically, George Galloway thankfully lingers in the doldrums of the UK system where he's not going to win any power for anytime soon. He was an MP, unfortunately, and hopefully that's the future we can hope for Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah, I also am pretty sure the UK Independence Party never won a seat. I think Nigel Farage ran for Parliament 7 or 8 times and lost every single time. Yeah, they won elections for European Parliament where people such as myself who voted for them voted on a single issue, which is get out of the European Union. Yeah, George Galloway actually did win a seat as the Respect Party candidate, and that was the only seat I believe they've ever won. And so I'd be surprised if this party has 0 seats first and foremost because Jeremy Corbyn himself will run, and he will run wherever he knows he's going to win. But yeah, the system will make it difficult. But there's there's something underlying there. First of all, we don't know what's going to happen in terms of people within the Labour Party, including people in senior positions, people in Parliament who might defect. There could be defections among the Labour Party right now, and these could be members of parliament who are popular within their constituency, and people will vote because this person, fixed the pothole in the road down where I live, so I'm going to vote for them. And I don't care. I don't know any Jews. What do I care about all that stuff? So yeah, that's often how things happen. So this is why here at the Ayn Rand Center UK we say, we'll be saying a lot of this in the show that's coming up next, that politics, as Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture. Culture is downstream from the fundamental, branches of philosophy, from ethics, from metaphysics, from epistemology. It'll be a long time, a long, difficult journey to get to the point where I think we have to get to as a society where people with ideas like Jeremy Corbyn's and George Galloway's will be around, but they'll be around, and you'll treat them like you treat any random person in the street corner with a megaphone, shouting about how the end of the world is coming. Uh, I'm not talking about Greta. I'm talking about, it's usually religious people, but yeah, because she's popular. So
Yeah. I mean, it's a. I mean, do we have to wrap up, or do I have time to say something else?
yeah, we have a few more minutes.
Okay. Um, I, I find it unlikely that he'll get defections from the Labour Party, and that's only because the people who are real loyalists for him are very senior members of Labour, and have been in there so long and are kind of old stalwarts of the Labour Party that it would be tough to imagine them leaving. So one of his real loyalists is the estimable Diane Abbott, right, who's the MP for Hackney, rather famously. And then there was a great video. Sorry, this is just me chatting now, but there was a great video of her at a select committee recently, trying to tell a representative of a local Jewish charity that the marches for Gaza in London were not anti-Semitic and were really peaceful. And this guy absolutely slates it. I encourage everyone to go and look up that video. But who herself, famously doesn't have a very good command of mathematics, but also doesn't have a very good record on the Jews, as that guy kind of slates her for. She's such an integral member of the Labour Party. It'd be really hard to see someone like her leaving, and she's one of the obvious ones who would leave for him. Perhaps John McDonnell would, who was his shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, and who is a real Marxist and will talk to you about all the volumes of Capital that he's read, and who there's recordings of him talking about how he felt so close as Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer to overthrowing the capitalist system. He'd been fighting for it for his whole life. Even he, I really would struggle to see him leaving the Labour Party. I think there would be a lot of inertia to overcome. So, yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think we're seeing him floating off into gentle obscurity, and long may he stay there.
Yeah, I would not at all be surprised if Diane Abbott does join his party. Again, I think she's one of the people who will win their seat easily if whatever party she is officially a part of. But yeah, all that is speculation. By the way, the very formation of this party is still speculation. It hasn't been confirmed that it's happening. But again, we do know that there's an appetite for it, even if it's not prime minister level. There's enough anger within the left at Labour, specifically for their lack of support for the Palestinian terrorists, that there are people leaving, and this party could do well enough. They'll do better than UKIP. Let's call it that. They'll do better than UKIP in terms of winning seats in a general election. I don't know if they'll do better than UKIP in their goal of exterminating the Jews, but we'll
Well,
we'll find out.
but that's another problem for them winning any seats, right? Is that the people they would attract are all the people who've been under the microscope in the last few years because of the anti-Semitism scandals. So really, the ones who would defect would have to be Corbyn loyalists generally, and you would expect them to also be people who have a really foul reputation. which isn't tremendously electable. So yeah, so I mean, it's something to keep an eye on, but he's not going to be haunting my waking dreams. Let's put it that way.
Well, he's already haunting my dreams, so nothing new here. And yeah, something definitely to look forward to is the ARCUK Republican debate. Morgan, Jim Brown, and myself will be debating. Will be saying who we would vote for if there was an election today. That's the best way to put it. I think we will have more than half the episode will be kind of disclaimers and yeah, qualifications for everything we say. But it is going to be an interesting debate. It is going to be interactive. We don't often do that. We're not actually pro-democracy in the regular sense. We're pro, electing leaders, but not democracy as such. But ARCUK is going to be a democracy for the next hour and 4 minutes. You will get to vote on several topics, including who you would vote for in a presidential in the primaries if it was held today, and who won the debate, and then on a few topics in the middle. Morgan, we have a few minutes. I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee. I think I'll need that for the debate. Thanks everybody for joining us, and yeah, stay tuned. The debate starts in 3 minutes.